Thank you for coming this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you what I know about apologetics and parenting. I've called this particular talk Parenting with Apologetics and Authenticity, because sharing knowledge with your child is not going to be enough. They need to feel your authentic commitment to not only what you believe, but to them. Generation Z, or kids born between 1997 and 2013, they value authentic relationship. So we need to be authentic with our parenting with apologetics. So it's really important to understand that. And I also want you to know that this is a struggle with lots of parents today. There are many problems with people basically rejecting any type of traditional faith system. It's not just your problem, it's our culture's problem. Here is a statistic that came from a survey done asking people what their religious affiliation was. And you can see from 2007 to 2021, Christianity has been on the decline. And there is a rise in people claiming no religion or none. So if you have a child who's struggling with the faith, that's really not uncommon. And it doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It just means we're having a cultural shift. And we need to understand what's happening. We also need to understand that it's happening at younger and younger ages. So many of these nuns lost their faith before they even finished high school. So the fact that you're listening to this and wanting to learn how to help your kids either believe Christianity is true or stay a Christian is really critical. May God bless your effort to help your children believe or to remain in the faith. Because I know I can't imagine life without my faith. And I think that that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of anxiety today and a lot of depression. Because if we're really truly honest with ourselves, most of us would be depressed if we didn't have hope in God. And to be able to have that hope and have that confidence that there's more to life than what meets the eye is a great sense of comfort, which a lot of young people don't have right now. Lots and lots of young people are very anxious today. So it's really vital that we help them not only to believe Christianity is true, but to show them why it's important to their lives, because a lot of them actually, they think God is irrelevant. They can't see the point. And there's many reasons why kids do leave the faith. Irrelevancy is one of them. So how does God make a difference in my life? Well, I just shared one of them. God can make a difference in your life by giving you peace instead of anxiety. Some leave because they think the church is judgmental. Others leave because they're not connected to the church or they don't have any Christian friends. So they don't really feel like there's a fellowship or a sense of community. And then some leave because of intellectual reasons, like reconciling science and faith. This last reason is where apologetics could help. So learning some basic apologetics is important. You're already doing this by listening to this talk and studying apologetics, and you should learn some more on your own. At the end of this talk, there'll be a little bit of resources I can recommend for you. There's a lot of things available now, a lot of really great books and podcasts, YouTube videos. So there's plenty of things to learn from. But where can we begin when we talk to our kids about apologetics? I mean, we can have all the head knowledge, but how do we actually make that practical, right? Well, everyday conversations is where you kind of sort of can begin. For instance, you can have dinner together, try to connect over a meal a few times per week, and this is where conversations can happen. And I highly recommend that you instill, if you don't already have this policy, a no phone zone during mealtime with families so that you can really engage with each other. And during this time, this is where you can ask questions. Don't start by giving them answers. As parents, I know that's kind of a default. We want to give them good advice. We want to tell them what to do. We're concerned for their welfare. Those are all great, good things. But sometimes I've learned, at least with raising my two kids through the teenage years, one's on off to college and doing well in college, and another one's finished with college and she's doing great in her career. But sometimes what I learned during those high school years and middle school years, it's best just to listen to them. Listen to their thoughts. And as you listen, and you'll gain their confidence that you're actually paying attention and care about their lives. So then when the time comes, they might be more open to listening to you in return. So asking questions, checking in with them on a regular basis. Don't be quick to say, hey, let me give you some advice on that. Sometimes it's best just to, again, be real with them. Young people really value authenticity. So these conversations should be sort of a safe space where they don't feel judged, because the younger generation, they're really, really, really sensitive about that judgment thing. And then again, start asking them questions. And here's some questions that you can consider when talking about faith issues. So there's two basic questions you can ask, and you don't have to do these all at once because it could be awkward. So just try to find, natural ways to talk about this or bring this up if the conversation sort of lends itself to that direction. You could just simply ask, what do you believe? You don't have to give them, this is what I believe, and you have to believe it. You could just say, well, what do you believe? I'm interested to knowing what you believe. And then you can listen to their answer. And please clarify, if needed, what do you mean by that? And then you can ask them, well, why do you believe that? What is it that makes you believe that? And again, follow up with clarification. Clarify your terms. What do you mean by that? It's really important to understand, to clarify certain terms, because as you well know, language changes, and sometimes meaning of what you think is a certain word may be different from how they perceive it, and vice versa. So these are some basic questions. Just, what do you believe? Why do you believe that? What do you mean by that? And remember too that kids may not be able to answer that question right away. Like they may be not even very thoughtful about it, and that's okay. They may not have the answers right away, because what you're doing is you're putting what they call a pebble in their shoe. So your question just might make them think. It's kind of something that sticks in the mind and makes you think about it. Kind of like when you have a pebble in your shoe and it's annoying you and you kind of like want to get it out of your shoe, but just that's kind of the analogy is, again, you just are there to listen, to be an encouragement, and to be open to them, and not quick to judge, not quick to give them advice. And then you just simply ask them about what they believe and why they believe it. And then the conversation can be continued later. So if they don't have the answers to what they believe or why they believe it, and it doesn't seem like an appropriate time to bring it up for whatever reason, then that's okay. This is something that doesn't have to be a one-time shot. If you have meals together on a regular basis, then you have other opportunities where you can continue the conversation at a later point. And in the meantime, you can be praying for them, praying that God would help them to see and to understand and to be open to listening when the time comes. So I think it's important as parents to help your children think critically about the world in which they live and about the messages they're getting from the world. And the messages they get from the world are generally secular. So the secular worldview is what they're being shown primarily through the media and through educational systems. And basically secularism is, they sort of infer that truth is relative. And relativism basically means the belief that the absolute truth or objective truth doesn't really exist. So a lot of kids believe that truth is seen sort of as a personal choice. In other words, it's subjective. And this is one of the reasons why there's so much cultural confusion today, because lots of people think they can define their own truth. Or they'll say, oh, that's true for you, but that's not true for me. You do you, I'll do me, that kind of thing. But what we need to do is we need to show our children that the claim that there is no truth actually contradicts itself, because that statement in of itself is making a truth claim. And to live as if there is no objective truth is living falsely. We all ultimately live as if there are truths to live by. I mean, we all obey the law, or we should obey the law. We know the truth would be if you break the law, you're going to get in trouble. So that's a truth. So lots of people live by truths all the time, and they just they don't fully understand it. So part of our job is to ask them questions about that. Again, use these as talking points to be able to say, hey, what do you think about that? So you're saying there is no truth. Is that true? I mean, if there's no truth, how do we know that that's true if that's not true? Do you see how I'm doing that? So I don't always want to tell my kid, well, you're wrong and this is right. What I want to do is I want to ask questions to make them start to think on their own as to why maybe some of the stuff that they've been fed by secular culture is not necessarily the right thing. So, what do you do, though, if your child is completely non-believing, angry, doesn't want to deal with it? Again, continue to be open, honest with them, authentic with them. Pray on a regular basis for them. And remember that love is the highest goal. So at the end of the day, that's the most important thing we can do. Love is the highest goal as parents. So even if your kid's doing things that you are concerned about or you're afraid about, if they know that you truly love them, then that bridges a communication channel. And they are going to be more inclined to talk to you about their lives. And as you continue to love them well, you're authentic with them, you can, again, ask them questions. And another question you can ask is you can just say simply, if Christianity is true, would you believe it? And see what they say. Again, these kinds of questions have to be asked in a context of a safe space. So if you've established like a regular meal time or some sort of regular time where you're communicating with your kids in a non-judgmental way, and you're asking these questions and you're letting them know that you're authentic and that you care about them, that you love them, you're not going to ask these questions to try to trip them up or try to guilt them into believing or any of that kind of stuff. You want to be able to reach their hearts, not only their minds. So you might be able to get to a point to ask them this question, and then listen to what their answers are, and don't always jump to giving them the answer. Just listen. And then you can think about it later for yourself. And there are 4 primary reasons they might not even be aware of why they feel a certain way about Christianity and its truthness. And that would be an intellectual stumbling block. That's a primary reason for unbelief. Again, science and faith tends to be a big part of that. So apologetics definitely will help in that area. Or there's an emotional reason. A lot of times there's a misunderstanding of who God is, or the effect of sin in people's lives, or why God allows evil. That's a big one too. And that's more of an emotional thing, because they don't understand, if God is good, then why is there evil in the world? Or it could be what is known as volitional reason, which is basically they don't want God to be Lord. Their will is what they want. They don't want God's will. And there's a certain element of humility that has to come with Christianity. You have to admit, for one thing, you have to admit you're a sinner. And that's not real popular these days. And then you have to let God be God. And recognize you're not. You're not God. He's God. So some people don't want God to be God. They want to be their own God. And that goes back to the garden. And the original sin in the first place was that people wanted to go their own way without God, which sometimes can cause a spiritual blindness as well. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, it says, "The God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers, so they cannot see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Christ, who is the image of God." So that also can happen, and a spiritual condition has to happen, can only be corrected spiritually. So that's where prayer again comes in, because an intellectual apologetic argument is not going to remove the spiritual aspect. So that's one thing about apologetics. Apologetics is an amazing tool for showing that Christianity is reasonable to believe in, but it's not the only thing. It's not going to be the thing that always helps people come to faith. Oftentimes, there are these other reasons why people don't believe. And so when you ask them if you believe Christianity is true, or if Christianity was true, would you believe it? And they sort of hem and haw. Maybe they don't know how to answer that right away. You could be listening to what they say. And it could be falling under one of these categories, and then that'll help you to figure out, again, how to approach them, how to pray, how to talk, how to help them in their quest. Hopefully they have a quest for truth. Hopefully they want to know the truth. But even if they don't, let's say they're just not open to it, I highly recommend that as a parent, you find common ground with your kids. And these are some of the issues that are very, very important to young people. The first picture here of the girl holding a sign that says, "There is no planet B." So kids are very, very concerned about climate change. And we can relate to them as Christians because we're supposed to care for creation. It's all God's. It's a biblical mandate that we care for his creation. So yeah, let's care for it. Let's take good care of it. Let's do things to help the environment. And then another important aspect for kids is that racism is a thing. They are really all fired up about racism. And so the Bible really ultimately teaches that there's only one race, and that's the human race. So again, here's some ways you can find common ground with your kids. And then finally, the guns. Kids are getting shot in schools, and they're feeling like nobody cares because nobody's changing the gun laws. And that's tragic. And Here's another place where we can find common ground as Christians, because Jesus taught and modeled nonviolence. So again, you can just show them these things, that this is the Christian worldview. Christian worldview lines up with a lot of what young people care about. Young people are very into social causes. So was Jesus. Jesus defended the poor. There's so many things that we can find common ground with our kids. And so sometimes you just have to take it there. The bottom line is that sometimes kids just need to go through a period of time where they wrestle with these things, and it's not going to be a one-time shot and they get it. It's just an everyday, ongoing thing as parents that we have to do. We have to just be patient, and we have to continue to pray. So prayer is like the foundation. And again, ask questions, listen well, love well. Don't act out of fear, but trust God with your kids. Always be respectful of your kids and gently share the truth with them, knowing that you're planting seeds and only God can make those seeds grow. So you're a seed planter, and you can pray that God makes those seeds grow. And you can continue your quest on learning about apologetics. Reasonable Faith has some excellent videos you can watch online. I don't know if they're translated or not, but they may have some translations. Reasons to Believe has a whole bunch of stuff about science and faith. There's a book and a website and a podcast called Mama Bear Apologetics that's pretty interesting. Natasha Crane, she's authored a couple of books about how to talk to your kids about apologetics, and I believe she's got those translated as well. And then J. Warner Wallace, he wrote a book called Cold Case Christianity. Excellent resource, and his website's really good as well. And then Sean McDowell is another really good one. He has a YouTube channel, and he's got some great stuff too. So you can find all these recommendations at my resources page at my blog. So you don't have to worry about trying to remember all these things. You can just go to my blog later, thinkdivinely.com/resources, and check those out. And go online, do a little bit of research, and you can find those resources and continue your own education about apologetics. So I hope that helps you parent your child with apologetics and authenticity.